Hello and welcome to the La Course on Tête podcast in association with Peloton Magazine. As always, welcome to Aérogramme listeners and Peloton Magazine subscribers. I was trying to think, Jeremy Whittle, who I'll introduce formally in a second, of a cycling analogy for rolling out the red carpet for them. I couldn't think of one. Have you got one?
For rolling out the red carpet for who?
Well, for the Aérogramme listeners and the Peloton Magazine subscribers. Is it rolling down maybe the start ramp?
Yellow brick road of the Champs-Elysees.
Well, there you go. That's why you're a wordsmith. My name's OJ Borg, long-time cycling fan and toe dipper into the journalistic world around it. I'll be hosting these occasional podcasts through this year's Tour de France all the way to Paris. And like a 1984 Phil Collins records, against all odds, we've made it to the first rest day. Surprised and let down so far. The value of a rest day, the beguiling magic of the Grand Boucle, and what the next thrilling instalment has in store for us is all on the menu. Let me introduce formally now Jeremy Whittle, covering the Tour for The Guardian this year, as well as the author of books such as Bad Blood. I like to think of him as the gritty soul of cycling journalism. Jeremy Whittle.
Thank you.
Like a stern yet encouraging father figure that just wants the best for us all.
In the end, yeah. Ultimately, yeah.
Also with me is Sophie Smith, who's an 8-tour veteran who has covered cycling in all its forms. Hello, Sophie.
Hello, how are we?
Yeah, I was going to say the only thing you know more about than the goings-on in the peloton is how to sit on a plane for 24 hours in style.
I don't know about the style.
Well, you normally fly business class.
I definitely know how to do
Australia.
it. Oh, yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
Every time. Normally,
Totally.
every year. Obviously not in
journalism
2020.
is still that glamorous.
But not in 2020. But how many times do you normally fly from Australia to Europe each year?
Long haul, normally I do maybe 4 or 5 flights a year.
Oh,
So
ouch.
this is the first year I haven't had a chest infection in a while because
I
I haven't
wonder.
been at an airport.
Ironically.
Flew together there.
Yeah.
I know.
And rounding us out, we've got Emma O'Reilly, author of Race to Truth and former soigneur to Lance Armstrong. Last time I saw you, Emma, you were comforting me as I was close to tears during an ill-advised Everesting attempt. I'd like to thank you then and thank you now, Emma.
Yes, but OJ, you succeeded. You got through it and did it within the time frame.
I did.
So congratulations.
There were tears, though. If you're thinking about doing an Everesting, think again. Right then, let's start with the rest day. Sophie, do you like the rest days or do you hate them?
Well, you said this sort of off record before, didn't you? They're not really rest days. I don't know if you came up with the title rest day. Because a lot of the time at the race, I was always between press conferences and writing more almost because you didn't have a race specifically to follow on that day. So I don't know if I ever got any rest, but I do like it in that it was an opportunity to do some washing.
Yeah, they are.
It to sound really not glamorous, but it's not glamorous. That's the truth of it. So.
No, it is. It's like they are badly titled. The times I covered it for the BBC, you'd always be dragged off to some sort of press conference, which guaranteed the teams were put somewhere really inconsiderate, Jeremy.
Yeah, normally you have to do that. You have to do that kind of stick or twist thing where you've got the Team Sky press conference 50 kilometres one way, and then the Jumbo Visma or whoever it may be, whichever team it is, the other big team, 50 kilometres the other way. So, and they're both at the same time. So you always have to make this choice. Ideally, if you can split into 2 people, then you'd be at both. But of course, that never happens. But the thing I used to dislike about rest days was I'd always have this false sense of kind of a leisurely pace. So I'd wake up and I think, I'll have 2 coffees this morning. I'll sit on the terrace for an extra. And then you suddenly go, oh, God, I've forgotten to, and I've got to be. And then you'd have the mania of the Tour would take over within half an hour of waking up and you'd be panicking again, as you are most days on the Tour.
Yeah, with the washing thing, Sophie, I must admit, I tried to, in the final tour I did, which was a few years ago now, was follow the Rob Hales technique, which is where you take basically 3 pairs of pants and about 2 T-shirts, and you're constantly wearing one, drying one, and have one to wash, which cut down for him on the actual washing. But for me, I don't know. I needed more pairs of pants.
I take a different outfit for every day, pretty much. So, I don't know. That would help me, but
with that whole laundry on the back window thing, and on the dashboard, so you're driving along in the sun, testing the temperature of your smalls, as the sun walks. It's pretty gross. And B, what about a service wash or booking to a hotel that has a service wash?
Well, you haven't worked for the BBC.
Actually, the thing is, you could have all sorted it by just actually getting friendly with some soigneur in the team, because we all have our facilities for washing. So there's where it all went wrong.
You say that, Emma. Have you ever washed journalist underpants? I mean, I've seen it in the bottom of the team buses. But have you ever washed the underpants of a journalist? There you go.
I probably haven't, but I've definitely washed some of their t-shirts and stuff like that. Definitely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I feel
but
we've broken new ground already.
Probably underpants might be in a bridge too far. It's bad enough washing your own riders' underpants and stuff without journalists washing.
Right then, well, let's look at the highs and lows so far. For you, Sophie, what have been the highs and the lows so far?
I guess the highs that it started. I think it was, for me, there was a lot of doubt that he would leave Nice. I've spoken to a few riders about whether they think of a weekend that will make Paris. There still seems to be some uncertainty there. But the proper highlight for me has just been that, from what I'm viewing on the TV in Australia, it just seems this year like a really even contest in terms of the GC battle. Like, my first tour was 2012, so basically all I've known is Sky or Ineos dominance for the better part of a decade. So the fact that in the pointy end of the mountain stages that we've had, that's, man-to-man and a few different teams, not just one or two, Jumbo-Visma, being a bit of an exception. That, for me, has been the most exciting part of the race so far.
What have been the lows? Has there been a low? Because the thing was, though, as I think William wrote about it, which is you sort of forget, this is on Le Course on Tête, he wrote about it, you can read it there. It's almost easy to forget that I feel like it's been one of the most exciting Tour de France's that I've ever watched. Yet the first few stages, nothing really happened apart from on the first stage when everyone slipped off.
I commented on Twitter about this and got some love and some hate for it. I can't remember what stage it was that everyone was upset that no break went away. And I'm like, yeah, okay, it might be boring to watch, but I don't know. For me, you can't ask riders on the back of a near 5-month competition shutdown to enter one of the hardest tours that we've seen in a very long time. And on the back of the first summit finish of the race, do black backflips and at the same time ask for a clean sport. For me, that's nonsensical. For me, if they were bursting out of the, gates every single stage so far, knowing what's to come, I'd be more concerned than not. So, yeah, and I think the last few days in the Pyrenees have that's the tour, isn't it? Someone compared it to the Ashes, and I hate cricket. I don't watch the Ashes, but it is a long burn.
Did an Australian just say that? Oh.
Yeah, sorry. Shouldn't have. But yeah.
I was just going to say, though, that I think that, it's the first week of the tour. That was a mainly flat rolling stage. They had a tailwind for some of it. Okay, they had crosswinds at the end. I don't know. I think, if the state that the sport is in now in terms of the business model, because of the pandemic, everybody's worried about the future. Everybody's worried about teams shrinking and contracts shrinking and sponsors going away because they can't afford to sponsor anymore. I was quite surprised there wasn't more attacks from the lesser teams on those days, because those are their opportunities. Their opportunities aren't in the Pyrenees or in, the Alps. They're days like that.
Are you surprised that there are two Frenchmen in the top 5, they're sat 28 seconds to 30 seconds down? Are you surprised there's two Frenchmen there, but they're not the Frenchmen anybody was talking about before this Tour de France started?
I am surprised, but it goes back to what I said before, and that's been my highlight of the tour this year so far, is that the top 5, it's not been unpredictable, but there's a lot more people in there than we perhaps would have usually seen. Pinot, his comments after he dropped out, he seems mentally just to not really love the tour anymore, to be really struggling in his marriage with it, which helps. I know I spoke to Richie Port earlier in the rest day, and Martin was actually, when I asked him who he thought the strongest riders in the race was the first person that came to his mind. So am I surprised to see them there? Well, certainly they wouldn't have been the two names that I didn't put them down in my top 3, my top 5. But from the riders I've spoken to in the actual race, they're both highly rated.
Jeremy, it is an interesting top 10, isn't it? When you look at it, I mean, we had Adam Yates in yellow for a few days, which he got there accidentally because he didn't actually win the jersey, was he? It was put on his shoulders. He's now down in 8th. Who do you think's out of the running for this year's Tour de France? How far down do we go out of that top 10?
8th. within a minute, I think it's so the margins are so tight now in the Tour. It used to be kind of like if you were within like 2 or 3 minutes, you could still win the race halfway through. Now I think it's going to be decided by seconds, I'd have thought, and it will probably go down to that final time trial, because the final time trial to La Planche des Belles Filles, which is the Saturday before the race ends in Paris, that's not that long, and I think it's deliberately building up. They've very deliberately designed that to have a cliffhanger, and the way it's going at the moment, I think they're going to get it. Who will be in at the last and within the top three at the end? I don't know, but I'd have thought that time trial will start with the race still up for grabs, with the jersey still up for grabs on the final day. So I'd have thought anybody within a minute could still win. Maybe a minute and a half at this level, because the level is so high this year. I mean, I don't know. It seems to get every year the Tour seems to get more intense, and I think perhaps because of the pandemic, perhaps because of the long break from racing, perhaps because again they're racing for their careers in a sense. They're all worried about how many days they've got left this season, if these are the races will go ahead. There's a lot stacked on their performance in the Tour, so maybe that's why it feels like it's more intense than usual.
I mean, do you think? I think that's why we all thought that there was going to be fireworks from the off, because no one's raced, and obviously they're all competitive. You don't get to the top level of cycling without being competitive. We all thought that, plus the fact that people's contracts are up. And Emma, you sort of thought that because people are riding maybe for a contract next year or just for their careers, you thought the first few stages would be real fireworks, but it just didn't really happen, did it?
Yeah, it was surprising that, really. I was personally very surprised, but then I think they were just scared about what's ahead of them and trying to be there till the end, because obviously these have started, even with the COVID and everything, they've all started with the intention of finishing it. And you guys would know too, there's no way does France want the Tour not to finish, not to finish with a complete set. So, yeah, I think they were just kind of protecting themselves a bit, and they got a bit of a shock on the first day in Nice with all the crashes and everything, and quite a few then kind of got hurt, and then some didn't start the next day. So I think that frightened them a bit.
You've been looking after riders and obviously working with riders when they've been in a really bad way. And we've seen quite a few riders we've seen some riders continuing, like Pavel Sivakov, who was tears on the first stage because he crashed 3 times, is obviously in awful lot of pain. Woodpools is continuing with a broken rib. We've seen Fabio Aru's, I wrote about that this evening on La Course. His kind of downfall from, superstar to kind of, he's a nowhere man now. You've been with riders when their morale is in their boots and they're in agony.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you deal with those situations?
Do you know, it's really, really hard, and your kind of heart goes out to them, just because you know how important this Tour is for them, like any Tour de France is for them. You've been with them throughout the season. Obviously this year's a bit different, but there will have been still some contact. You know just all the sacrifices, how hard they've worked, and then this happens at the crash, and they will try their best to get through anything. But can you imagine doing this with a broken rib? Like, you need your full lung capacity at the best of times, but to do it with a rib broken, it's just horrendous. And then the problem with some of the cuts and stuff, especially if they're on their back and things, well, then they have to put a jersey on. You kind of massaging around the area, and you can't kind of get stuck into the area that's actually sore and needs the treatment. And then it's almost pitiful, because as the race goes on, those wounds get better. But if they can just get through those few days when they're at their peak, but it's really, because you're not sleeping, your morale is down, and you're in pain from the crash, you're in pain from the race, and you're just not operating at full cylinder.
How do you think the team managers deal with those situations? Is it more down to guys, guys in the backroom team, and people like you looking after them, after the race to kind of talk about, things to take their mind off it, or do the managers just kind of like have quite a brutal approach towards it?
I think it depends on the manager. It depends on the rider. There's some riders, even if the morale is low, they don't want the managers kind of giving them a load of sympathy, and some will need the sympathy. But I think there's the case where the backroom staff are actually quite important, because sometimes when your morale's low, just doing little things like making sure that the jam that they like is there on the table, or that they get the roommate, or their room's nearest the lift. They're just stupid little things, or putting them first on the massage table, and those little things can help. And then too, as a soigneur, if a rider is a bit demoralised, you can kind of speak to without kind of divulging everything, you can speak to the manager, give him a heads up that he is actually demoralising. You know, because especially the lads, they're going to be a bit stoic to each other. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, sometimes there's where you can step in as the soigneur.
I mean, have you seen riders kind of break down mentally in Grand Tours and in races when they've had crashes or they've been injured or their form's gone or they just want to go home?
To be honest, no, not really. But I've seen them kind of want to crumble. But no, there's too much at stake. And if you do, you'll go off and deep. You'll go deep and silent on your own, really. Mm-hmm. So they just become more lonely. But there's too much at stake. And you know how hard cycling is and how, you know, if you crashed and burnt the sympathy, you'd go down in people's, you know, it's terrible, but you'd almost never live it down.
We're talking of that. We're sort of on winners and losers right now. And I'd like to apologise to him because I tipped him to win the Tour de France. And I've got a long history of ruining people's careers by tipping them to do big things. And that is Oh No. Because Pino, I thought he'd win the Tour de France. Is there any sympathy for him, do you think, Jeremy or Sophie? Do you think there's any sympathy for him for another failure? He said that, didn't he? I mean, he almost retired, didn't he, from riding the Tour de France after that stage where, again, you know, his back hurt and he'd had the crash. Too many failures, he called it.
Well, I think that for me, you know, part of his appeal is that he is fallible. Part of his
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's glorious failure. I get that, but how many times can he break the hearts of the French cycling fans?
There's a great little bit of it's almost become I think he's gone viral, almost gone viral on social media, but there's this great little clip of him looking at the TV camera as the TV camera came alongside him on Sunday, because on Sunday he seemed to be resurrected briefly and rode hard at the front of this break for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then that was it. He was busted flush again. And the TV motorbike came alongside, and the look he gives, and it's a very obvious French swear word that he utters as well.
Which one is it, Jeremy? No, I don't know.
It begins with P, but he just gives this look that's kind of like utter disgust that they're hovering around him, you know, looking for. Are you going to cry, Thibaut? Come on, you're going to cry for us. But
tears are the lubricant of good TV.
Yeah, but that is the tour, isn't it? That is the nature of the tour. You know, everyone wants to celebrate success, but everyone wants to be voyeuristic over people.
I know.
Well.
Could we call his autobiography "The Silence of the Goats"? Would that work?
Yeah.
Sophie, who else? Let's get the losers out of the way. Who else have been the big losers of this first week?
Pino for me has been the main one. I was going to say, added to what Jez said, I don't know him, but I've never seen him before. But reading his post-race comments, for me, almost I think that the tour seems to be one of those things for some riders where, like last year, you could be like, okay, that was just like horribly bad luck. He looked to me like he was on track to win the tour last year, and he's almost started to do it now when he calculates like all of his sort of losses, and then it becomes almost a bigger mental thing for him. Like I know I've never met one rider that says I love the Tour de France. Like everyone wants to be there, but I've never met one person that says, oh, the tour is great. Most of them hate it until they get to Paris and then they miss it the next day. I kind of have similar feelings, but
but that's what we'll say as well, isn't it? When we're in the last week, everybody says, oh, I hate this thing. I can't wait to get home and see the family. I'm so sick of the hotels. I'm so sick of the food and the driving and all of that. And then we get home and then we go, oh, I really miss the tour. I really miss being on the tour because you feel like the world is watching. You feel like you're at the heart of something that is really important to millions of people around the world. And I guess if you're a rider, you know, that knowledge that it is the very pinnacle of everything you've been working for 15 years or whatever, since you were a kid. I mean, that's why, again, it's possible that they put themselves through so much just to finish.
Yeah. And actually, in all fairness, the riders are great for talking, kind of moaning and groaning and stuff like that. But they love the tour. Because you see from teams being picked before the tour, like the month leading up to the teams, oh my God, this is the most important thing in their life. So when any of them says they hate the tour, it's like, oh, really? Do you know what I mean?
I can call crap.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
I can smell it from here. Do you know what I mean?
Well, let's talk about winners then. Who's having a good first week? I mean, can I just throw in one name? Because I mean, I watched that stage with Mark Hershey, solo break most of the day, gets caught, gets back on, tries to out-sprint him. I did enjoy a lot of people on Twitter saying, well, if only he'd held on to his sprint a little bit longer. You just think, have you seen what that man's gone through? So for me, winner of the Tour de France so far, it's not the man wearing yellow. It's Mark Hershey from almost losing out on a stage. Well, he's lost out on 2 stages, hasn't he? I just think for young Swiss rider, he for me is the future of cycling.
Yeah. Do you know what was great about him was what I loved is on that second stage when Anna Philippe and Adam Yates were there. He was not letting them bully him at all. He was there as an equal. And that, he really went huge up my estimation. And then, yesterday? Yeah. Was it yesterday? That stage anyway, that he was away all day and then the guys came up. I just thought, my God, respect. Again, he didn't let them intimidate him at all and just tried to do his best to get the sprint. The guy's a hero. The guy is the future. He's brilliant.
He was. I love watching him.
I think what I thought was so spectacular about that was the number of times that he got a bottle from the car. Never seen.
Oh God, yes.
Anybody take that many bottles from the car? And almost every time the bottle got, just he pulled the top off it, and just slung it away, just as a gesture. So he had quite a lot of sticky bottles, as they say. So I didn't feel that upset for him. If he did have quite some.
There's only so many sticky bottles. There's not that many sticky bottles that keeps you away for 90k.
I know,
I was quite surprised that the commissaires didn't, intervene. Emma.
Yeah, sorry. Only I was going to say the sticky bottles, they weren't that long sticky bottles. They were just short sticky bottles. Do you know what I mean?
Don't ruin a good story.
Yeah. What's the ultimate time of seconds for a sticky bottle, do you think? What's the peak amount of time that you can get away with it?
It's got to be Nibali in that Tour of Spain a few years ago. That has got to be the ultimate one.
That was basically...
I don't know how long it was.
That was from Malaga to Madrid or something.
That was great.
What are the winners? Sophie, for you, who's the big winner of the week? Is it I knew I wouldn't be able to say his name. Pogacar. There you go.
I thought of it, and now that you said it, he's a massive winner, isn't he? I think UAE Team Emirates is like, they can come away from the first week going like, no one, I don't think, picked Alexander Kristoff to win that first stage, did they?
No.
I certainly did not. Also, I've been writing about Caleb Ewan and Dylan Groenewegen and all this new generation of sprinters, and I called him a veteran and then retracted that because I realised he's actually a year younger than me. They've been really surprising for me, and I think Pogacar only seems to be getting more confident. I thought of a loser. I bought time when you asked me that, and now it's just come to mind. Tom Dumoulin. Seeing him lose time, but that to me is less of a surprise just because he hasn't raced prior to this for like 400 and something days.
Oh, but
sorry, Em.
I think though that there's a few winners you can pick out. I think Rigoberto Urán, because it was less than a year ago that he had a crash almost as bad as Chris Froome's in the Vuelta last year, where he said afterwards he was lucky to be alive. That was one of the phrases that came out, and he suffered lots of fractures, punctured lung. He was in intensive care, so that's a remarkable recovery, and he's now inside the top 10 and looking really good, and maybe getting better as we get towards the Alps. I'm not
32 seconds down. Serious contender for the Tour? For
the podium, yeah, definitely.
No, for actually winning it.
For the podium, yeah, definitely. I don't know. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. No, but I think. That's a real success story for them, because that team, Education First, were stacking everything on Sergio Higuita and Dani Martinez as well, understandably, because they're their bright young hopes. So I think it's a real surprise for them that Urán is going so well. Then you look at Nairo Quintana, which again is, he was great at the start of the season, but that was in the Tour de Provence, which is hardly the biggest fixture on anybody's sporting calendar. Nice race, but it's not that big a race. So that's a success. Romain Bardet, written off as a GC contender in Grand Tours, and now riding with a lot of guts and grit and looking like he means it for the first time for like 2 years, really. So
can he time trial yet, though, Jez?
No. The time trial he has no hope, I would have thought, in this. Although it is a mountain time trial, so maybe it's better.
Can Guillaume Martin time trial? Can he?
I don't know.
Has anyone seen Guillaume Martin?
No.
Is he a time trialist? Can he hit time
Don't
trials?
know.
The one person we're not talking about in the winners and losers is a man from a team who, be honest, everyone was sort of writing off, saying they were having a bad Tour de France this year after dominating it for the past 7. And that's Egan Bernal, the reigning champion. He sat just 21 seconds down off Primož Roglic. Is he a winner after this first week? Is he a loser? Is he sat in the middle? Is it neutral? Are Ineos just biding their time? Is it some new Dave Brailsford tactic to not do anything within the first week?
So I spoke to Dave Brailsford this afternoon. He said they've had an armchair ride.
Ooh.
Now, I think that's probably about right. And I think that there may be a danger of Jumbo-Visma blowing out in the last week, although Roglic himself looks the same as he did at the start of the race, the same as he did at the start of the month, the same as he did last month. He doesn't look like he's got any weaknesses at all. But he's been quite reliant on that team, and Bernal looked as if he's coming out of his back pain or whatever the exact nature of his back injury was. And he was racing again like he meant it on Sunday in the Pyrenees. So I think it's going to be very close between those two. And then anyone else who can sneak in to get third. But the victory, I'd thought, I don't know what everyone else thinks, the victory to me is between those two.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. But I kind of think, I don't know if Ineos, are they just not on the same form as they are? They don't seem to be quite as consistent as they normally are. And are they missing Nicky Portal? I kind of look at that and wonder if there's a bit of that they're missing, do you know? And obviously some of their older ones that they've had for years. But because they're not seem to me, listen, I'm not no tactician, but they don't seem to be riding consistently. They don't seem to have a consistent team plan. And I do agree with you. I think Bernal is riding into it a bit and is getting a bit of an armchair ride from Jumbo-Visma. But Roglic is by far streets ahead, I think. And also, if you look at the team, look at Dumoulin now as being a super domestique. Like, how good is that? Do you know what I mean? I think it's amazing. And then my new son, Sepp Kuss. That boy I'm going to have to adopt him. I've decided he's my son. How classy does he look on the bike? Like, imagine having him as a domestique. Do you know what I mean? That's before you go into Van Aert or Gesink or any of the rest of them. I think Jumbo are the team to beat. And actually, this was one of mine getting a bit paranoid during Dauphiné. I was kind of going, God almighty, are Jumbo throwing out all their cards now? And, you know, will they kind of blow by the Tour? So I got in touch with my old boss, Johan, just out of pure fear, going, please tell me Jumbo will survive. And he raised a good point because he said, actually, the season's so short that even if Jumbo have peaked in the Dauphiné, they should be able to hold it through the Tour. So not that I'm biased or anything like that, but yes, I just hope that Ineos can continue that little armchair ride because it's as good as they can do it, and that Jumbo-Visma and Roglic wins and Pogačar might be third.
It is. It's like look watching Roglic. I mean, the way
class.
He's ridden is super class. I mean, he looks, Sophie, like he's got zero weaknesses, as Emma said.
I think
the whole team's riding with confidence as well. I think that's perhaps what's missing from Ineos is that Jumbo-Visma, they all seem to know each other. They all seem to be riding consistently with a strategy that perhaps in previous years has been similar to what we're seeing with Ineos. But like Roglic, you know, was it that first stage where like they, you know, Tony Martin called for the go slow, and then it was Roglic that was telling Astana to like calm down. They seem to be owning, like, you know, they've not gone in plucky. They're confident. They're riding like, you know,
they're the patrons.
They're taking, like, thank you. They are the patrons. Whereas Ineos, to me, I certainly wouldn't discount them. But the whole, and I've said this so many times in our WhatsApp group, now I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I agree with them that just in terms of what they're doing on the road, but also like if you look inside their team bus, the core of it, like, that has been ripped out this year. Like culturally, it's entirely different. Luke Rowe might be the only person that speaks English as his native language potentially, and they don't have Portal. So I wonder if for them, certainly not discounting them, but if anything, this is going to be a very quick rebuilding exercise. They have to create that sort of new culture again. And they're all young; they're all in their early 20s, as opposed to being like a Geraint Thomas or a Chris Froome. You know, the international stage is an everyday for them. Certainly, I think they now can handle it. But yeah, I haven't really seen any chinks in Jumbo-Visma's armour or in Roglic. Can be hard to read, but they just they look like they're getting more confident and stronger by the day. Yeah.
I tell you how you know that Roglic is doing well. People have stopped talking about him as a ski jumper. You know he's doing well.
Oh, God. Thank God. Why do people still describe him as a ski jumper?
Because it's a great story. I was watching the stage when they were...
bio, and I hope he does it just out of being facetious. I've heard he is actually people in anti-doping control and behind the scenes of races who speak to him. They say he's like a fully fledged natural comedian. He'll go in there to do a doping and has everyone in stitches. Yeah. I've not seen that side of him yet.
No, I haven't either. He looks so controlled.
It's good as getting on so well with anti-doping. That's
Jeremy. Actually, the one thing I will say about Jumbo Visma is, which Sophie brought up, they genuinely seem to be gelling well together as a team. The morale seems to be good. Everybody, it seems to be all for one and one for all kind of thing. And it just seems to be that's been set up amongst the riders as much as management. Whereas with Ineos, you kind of get the impression that it's management who make it all for one and one for all. Whereas with Jumbo, there really just seems to be a nice morale amongst the lads themselves.
The thing is with this, how many times have we seen super teams, really well drilled teams? I mean, Jan Ullrich had teams built around him for year after year when he was riding against Armstrong. We've seen it in the past in the Tour. People come along and try and knock over the reigning champions with a kind of fantastically well-drilled team and then just fall short of it because Ineos have got the best Grand Tour rider on the scene at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that Egan Bernal is the best Grand Tour rider on the scene at the moment, better than Roglic. I might well be proven wrong, but I just think as we get towards the real business end of the race, Jumbo Visma as a team are going to fall away a bit and it's going to be those two head to head, and I think Bernal will just come out.
Yeah,
but I think it'll be really close, but I think he will.
Yeah, and I'll go with you on that because I actually do think Bernal is just by far the best tour rider. I think Roglic has just got such good form. He's got a good team. I'm putting Roglic
something there.
I'm putting the two lads together. Do you know what I mean?
Podge and Rog.
Roglic. Yeah, Podge and Rog. That's brilliant. Well, Roglic, I think, has got the really, really good form. I think Bernal is riding into it. But one of the things I do like about Bernal is, for a young lad, he's just got such presence within the bunch and within whatever group he's in, and he races, and he just seems to know what he's doing all the time, if that makes sense, and keeps a cool head. So I kind of think, even with Ineos not being as strong as they have been, he's not to be written off. Though Rog is going to be my number one and Bernal number two.
You know what? Cool head. You know what gives him the cool head? It's that ski jumping background. Well, let's do this now. We've sort of talked about it. Our original predictions before the Tour de France started. I'll be honest, I ruined Thibaut Pinot's career by voting for him to win it. I went for it out of pure romance of a Frenchman winning the Tour de France. So my prediction is already spoilt.
You look a little bit like Thibaut Pinot.
I'd take that. I'm actually, I didn't want to say this. The weather's terrible where I am, and I cycled in. I'm actually wearing Lycra to do this podcast. I don't know if we feel that black hole right now.
You've got 4-day growth for stubble.
Yeah.
Swarthy feet.
I've got a goat cheese with me.
Got the brooding.
Yeah.
I was going to say, OJ, you just need to get a few little goats and take pictures of you caressing the goats, and we'll all just love you and want you to win the tour yourself. Do you know what I mean?
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I find goats inherently evil, but that's a whole different story. So go on. What was your prediction before it started, Emma? And are you
I'm sticking to it because my prediction before it started was Roglic, Bernal. And then I was going to do, well, to be honest, it was Pogacar, Dumoulin, or Pinot. So obviously Pinot's gone. I was kind of just torn with who's going to be third. Yeah. So now I'm still first and second staying, but now third could be. See, I think Dumoulin could pull a bit of time back. Until again, it's a bit of the romance that he's been such a good domestique.
Not 3 minutes though.
No, I guess not. But we all want a bit of, maybe this skills Matan, but or else Pogacar.
Jeremy, who did you go for, Jeremy? Who was your pick to start with? Was it Bernal?
Yes. And it's
sticking with him?
Yeah. I mean, my big error was like yours. I picked the Frenchman, and he's he's been injured, hasn't he? I mean, it's this important thing. I think a lot of people are kind of like piling into both him and Fabio Aru, which I wrote back again this evening, saying they're kind of weaklings, which is, nobody in the Tour is a weakling, nobody in professional cycling is a weakling. But I think it's just such a shame that he had that crash, 3K to go. He came down with a real bang on his back. It could have been so different for him, but obviously he's out of contention now. So, yeah, sticking with my top two and then maybe going for, sentimentally, Rigoberto Urán to finish third.
Sophie.
What did I say? I said Bernal 1, Roglic 2, and I think I said Daniel Martinez 3. So I'm happy with my 1 and 2. My third, I'm not sure.
No,
well, go on, choose one.
Change.
Choose one.
No, I'm reserving.
Oh, okay.
I'm reserving. There'll be another podcast between here and the next rest day.
well, there will be, actually.
No, I don't know.
We've got about 5 more days before the next podcast. What do we expect then, between now and then, Jeremy? What do we expect to happen?
Well, tomorrow, the racing resumes tomorrow, which is Tuesday. For anyone listening to this tomorrow, that is. And the stage is stage 10, which goes from Ile-d'Oléron to Ile-de-Ré on the Atlantic coast of France, then Charente-Maritime area, which is famous for oyster beds, but it's also famous for crosswinds. And we could reasonably expect, I haven't actually looked at the forecast, but if it's windy, we can expect similar gaps as we got on the stage the other day into Lavore, where people were blown off the road, literally, almost. So that could be quite an exciting stage. And then we go on what would normally be a routine sprinter stage from the Atlantic coast to Poitiers. And then we've got a couple of days down towards the Massif Central, which kind of reach a bit of a climax on Friday with a summit finish on Puy-Mary, which is in the volcano region. So that's this week. You may think it's a lull, but as we know, there are no dull days in the Tour. And it's worth watching because obviously anything can happen at any point.
Roglic, is he losing the jersey within the next week?
I don't think so, no.
No. Though tomorrow could be really an interesting stage, but no.
No. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all so much. Make sure you check out La Course on Tête.com. There's tons of content on there for you to read. This week you'll get the tactical stage breakdowns from Nick Bull. Jeremy's written something about yesterday's man, also known as Fabio Aru. Sophie is writing on the green jersey, the fact that it's not a sprinter's jersey anymore.
That's what the pure sprinters are telling me. Caleb Ewan unequivocally has just said he's not interested. He's only competing this year for stage wins, which I find interesting then because Sam Bennett has appeared to approach some of the intermediates almost tactically. So assessing whether the green jersey does really belong to the pure sprinters and why some of the race have categorically said it doesn't and they're not bothering, and some are expending energy midway through the race as well as at the finish.
Well, thank you very much. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. You can do it all the usual ways. Any questions or anything that's come up you want to hit us up about, or maybe even troll us about, you can find us all individually or via @Peloton Magazine. Thank you to Emma. Thank you to Jeremy. Thank you to Sophie. And yeah, we'll see you on the next podcast. Thank you for listening.